Anuradhapura is a major city in Sri Lanka. It is the capital city of North Central Province, Sri Lanka, and the capital of Anuradhapura district. Anuradhapura is one of the ancient capitals of Sri Lanka, famous for its well-preserved ruins of ancient Sri Lankan civilization. It was the third capital of the Kingdom of Rajarata, following the kingdoms of Tambapani and Upati Sonuwara. The city, now a UNESCO World Heritage Site, was the center of Theravada Buddhism for many centuries. The city lies 205 kilometers north of the current capital Colombo in Sri Lanka's North Central Province, on the banks of the historic Malvathu Oya. It is one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities in the world and one of the 8 World Heritage Sites of Sri Lanka. It is believed that from the 4th century BC until the beginning of the 11th century AD it was the capital of the Sinhalese. During this period it remained one of the most stable and durable centers of political power and urban life in South Asia. The ancient city, considered sacred to the Buddhist world, is today surrounded by monasteries covering an area of over 16 square miles. Urban area. Proto-historic Iron Age. Although according to historical records the city was founded in the 5th century BC, the archaeological data put the date as far back as the 10th century BC. Very little evidence was available about the period before the 5th century BC, though excavations have revealed information about the earlier inhabitants of the city. Further excavations in Anuradhapura have uncovered information about the existence of a proto-historic habitation of humans in the citadel. The proto-historic Iron Age, which spans from 900 to 600 BC, marked the appearance of iron technology, pottery, the horse, domestic cattle and paddy cultivation. In the time period 700 to 600 BC, the settlement in Anuradhapura had grown over an area of at least 50 hectares. The city was strategically situated of major ports northwest and northeast. It was surrounded by irrigable and fertile land. The city was also buried deep in the jungle, providing natural defense from invaders. Lower Early Historic Period. The Lower Early Historic Period, spanning from 500 to 250 BC, is studied on the lines of the chronicles. During this time King Pandukabhaya formally planned the city, with gates, quarters for traders etc. The city at the time would have covered an area of 1 square kilometer, which makes it one of the largest in the continent at the time. Beginnings. The layout of Anuradhapura as described in the Mahavamsa. He laid out 4 suburbs, as well as the Abhaya Tank, the common cemetery, the place of execution, and the chapel of the Queens of the West, the banyan tree of Vesavana and the Palmyra palm of the demon of maladies. The ground set apart for the Yonis and the house of the great sacrifice, all these he laid out near the west gate. A hermitage was made for many ascetics. Eastward of that same cemetery the ruler built a house for the Nigantha Jyotiya. On the further side of Jyotiya's house and on this side of the Gamani Tank he likewise built a monastery for wandering mendicant monks, and a dwelling for the Ajivakas and a residence for the Brahmins. And in this place and that he built a lying-in shelter and a hall for those recovering from sickness. It is believed that King Pandukabhaya made it his capital in the 4th century BC, and that he also laid out the town and its suburbs according to a well-organized plan. He constructed a reservoir named Abhayavapi. He established shrines for yakas such as Kalola and Chittaraja. He housed the Yaksini Satya in the form of a mayor within the royal precincts, and offerings were made to all these demigods every year. He chose the sites for the cemetery and for the place of execution, the chapel of the Western Queen, the Pachi Maragini, the Vesavana banyan tree, the palm of the Vyadhadeva, the Yona quarter and the house of the great sacrifice. The slaves or candlers were assigned their duties and a village was set apart for them. They built dwellings for Niganthas, for wandering ascetics and for Ajivakas and Brahmanas. He established the village boundaries. The tradition that King Pandukabhaya made the Anuradhapura the capital city of Sri Lanka as early as the 4th century BC had been very important. The administrative and sanitary arrangements be made for the city and the shrines he provided indicate that over the years the city developed according to an original master plan. His son Mutadeva succeeded to the throne. During his reign of 60 years, he maintained Anuradhapura as his capital and further laid out the Mahameghavana Garden, which was to play an important role in the early history of Buddhism in Sri Lanka. It was in the period of his successor, his son Devanapayutissa, that Buddhism was first introduced this island 236 years after the passing away of the Buddha. Emperor Ashoka of India was a contemporary of Devanapayutissa. Mahinda was the son of Emperor Ashoka of India. Ashoka embraced Buddhism after he was inspired by a very small monk named Nigroda. The king, who was in great misery after seeing the loss of life caused by his waging wars to expand his empire, was struck by the peaceful countenance of such a young monk. Meeting this young monk made a turning point in his life, and he thereafter renounced wars. He was determined to spread the message of peace, to neutralize the effects from the damages caused by him through his warfare. As a result, both his son and daughter were ordained as Buddha disciples, and became enlightened as arahats. In his quest to spread the message of peace instead of war, he sent his son Mahinda to the island of Lanka, which was also known as Sinhalese. According to Dipavamsa and Mahavamsa, Thera Mahinda came to Sri Lanka from India on the full moon day of the month of Poson and met King Devanapayutissa and the people, and preached the doctrine. Historically, this period is believed to extend from 250 to 210 BC. This is the point at which a kingship began and a civilization developed based on one of the most significant religions of South Asia, Buddhism. Buddhism and Anuradhapura. With the introduction of Buddhism, the city gained more prominence and the Great Building Era began. The Mahavamsa states that King Kutakanatissa built the first city wall to a height of 7 cubits with a moat in front of the wall. This fortification was further enlarged by raising the wall a further 11 cubits to 18 cubits by King Vasabha. The king also added fortified gatehouses at the entrances, of which the ruins can be seen to date. The Mahavamsa also states that soothsayers and architects were consulted in the construction. During the later Anuradhapura period, the royal family and nobility of Sri Lanka strongly supported Buddhism. As such, they frequently commissioned works of art and donated these items to Buddhist temples. In return, the temple and local Buddhist community supported the king's rule. Artworks featuring depictions of Avalokitesvara, the Bodhisattva of mercy and compassion, became increasingly popular. Great Building Era. The city grows. The city's popularity grew both as a ritual center and as the administrative center. A large population was attracted to the city for permanent settlement. Thus, the living facilities were improved to accommodate the expanding population. King Vasabha constructed many ponds which were fed by a network of subterranean channels which were constructed to supply water to the city. The Tissa and a Bay of RP tanks were built. The new Anuradhapura was built and the Malwatu Oya was dammed to build the Nashchajiwa well, which was 4,408 acres in size. Parks were also provided in the city. The Ranmasuyana below the Bund of Tissavapi or Tissa Weva was one such, but it was strictly reserved for the members of the royal family. Healthcare and education were two other aspects to which the authorities paid attention. There were several hospitals in the city. In the 4th century, King Upatissa II provided quarters and homes for the crippled and the blind. King Buddhadasa, himself a physician of great repute, appointed a physician to be in charge of every 10 villages. For the maintenance of these physicians, 1/10 of the income from the fields was set apart. He also set up refuges for the sick in every village. Physicians were also appointed to look after the animals. Kasapavi founded a hospital close to the southern gate of Anuradhapura. General Sena in the 10th century is believed to have built a hospital close to the ceremonial street. The history of medical care began early, for in the 4th century BC King Pandukabhaya, in the course of sanitizing the town, constructed a hospital. A large workforce was entrusted with the task of keeping the city clean. Large lakes were also constructed by the city's rulers to irrigate paddylands and also to supply water to the city. Nuwara and Tisawari are among the best-known lakes in the city. The great city Anuradhapura attained its highest magnificence about the commencement of the Common Era. The city had some of the most complex irrigation systems of the ancient world. Situated in the dry zone of the country, the administration built many tanks to irrigate the land. Most of these tanks still survive. Pictures found in the oldest great city at Anuradhapura excavations. According to carbon dating, the ruins excavated were from the 10th century BC. In ruins, the ruins consist of three classes of buildings: dagobas, monastic buildings, and pokunas. The dagobas are bell-shaped masses of masonry, varying from a few feet to over 1,100 feet in circumference. Some of them contain enough masonry to build a town for 25,000 inhabitants. Remains of the monastic buildings are to be found in every direction in the shape of raised stone platforms, foundations and stone pillars. The most famous is the brazen palace erected by King Datuganu about 164 BC. The pokunas are bathing tanks or tanks for the supply of drinking water, which are scattered everywhere through the jungle. The city also contains a sacred bow tree, which is said to date back to the year 245 BC. 8 great places of veneration in Anuradhapura: Atamasthana Jaya Sri Mahabodhi, Ruwanwelasaya, Thuparamaya, Lovamahapaya, Abhayagiri Dagobah, Jetavanarama, Mirisaveta Stupa, Lankarama. Other structures are Surumuniya, Magalyuyana, Vesagiri, Rathnaprasadaya, Queen's Palace, Dakina Stupa, Selasetiya, Nakavihara, Kiribath Veera, Kutampokuna, Samadhi Statue, Toluwila Statue, Ranmasuyana. Demographics. Source: www.statistics.gov.lk. Census 2001. Transportation. Anuradhapura is served by railway and highways. The Northern Railway line connects Anuradhapura with Colombo, Jaffna, and Kankezantharai. Anuradhapura railway station is the city's rail gateway, with major services, such as the Yaldavi, calling there. Anuradhapura is a central city of Sri Lanka. It is directly connected to a large number of major cities and towns of the island. By road, it is connected to Vavuniya, Dambulla, Puttalam, Trincomalee, Jaffna, Karunagala and Kandy. Due to its status as a crossroads city, the city is a good base for exploring many important ancient landmarks a short distance away.